Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Live from Stubbs, live from South by Southwest, live in the Gemalto Lounge. Live. It is all live. Greg Matthews, Kyle Flaherty. We are here today with Jaime Punishell and David Berkowitz. 360i, Thomson Reuters. All right. So today's theme has been kind of around the e-wallet, the digital wallet, all the replacement of the leather wallet, all of those types of things. And David, you actually have a panel tomorrow morning on the topic.
On the topic, yeah.
What are you guys going to hit on in your panel?
Well, the panel's no wallet, no problem, and it's really about the viability of near field communication, or NFC.
Okay. So what? Sorry, Greg. I'm going to jump.
You're on a
that.
roll, man.
All right.
Go.
What are those? I mean, what are the barriers to entry for NFC right now?
Well, the biggest barrier to entry for NFC is that basically no one has a device that works on that uses NFC. So that's just a little quirk.
Right.
But beyond that, it works great.
Right. Seriously though?
Well, it can.
Yep.
I was even so excited to get an NFC-based business card before this trip, and it took me about 10 minutes of tapping it, and then 2 help desk requests, and then trying to search for videos for how to use the Galaxy Nexus NFC, and then realizing all it took was to turn the card over to the blank side, and it worked perfectly. And I'm an NFC expert.
Right.
Other than that,
so,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for those of us who aren't security experts or technology experts, can you explain a little bit about how NFC works?
Sure. Well, I can.
In a really technical
based
way,
on someone
please.
Who couldn't scan an NFC business.
That's exactly
Great
that's
follow-up
the right
question.
person to ask, right?
I'm glad you have me on here. But the idea is it's based on radio frequency ID and our RFID, and so it's just using radio waves to scan objects. But in this case, there's a scanner, and then there's an object to be scanned that have to be in extremely close proximity. And so often, most commonly now, this is used in the context of mobile wallets. So typically you have some stored payment information on your phone, and then you tap at, say, a retail credit card terminal, point of sale, and it instantly pays from there, and might incorporate your loyalty cards and things like that.
So, Jaime, this is something that you've kind of dealt with in your past life a little bit. What are some of the barriers that you kind of have seen from, especially the financial services side?
Let's start with consumers don't change easily. They don't understand the stuff. If it's not bone simple to use, they won't. If they have to do any work, they won't. And you look at the solutions now, they're far from, look, here's the NFC expert. Couldn't figure it out, right? Right. It's not clear actually how it benefits the financial services firms who are the door to all of these things. So you got a lot of things that are going to have to fall down before starting with actually getting devices that are NFC enabled. Then you got to get every merchant, by the way, NFC enabled. What happens when you don't have a cell connection? What happens when you travel overseas? Have a lot of fun systematically tearing this one down. It'll just take time, right? For all of those obstacles to be overcome.
But this feels like one of those things, one of these places in which the U.S. is a little behind other parts of the world, because I believe that mobile payments are much more common in Asia and I think beginning to be even in Europe now. Do you have a sense of whether they're...
The problem is you have so many pieces in the ecosystem, right? So you take Japan, where this is really common, right? You got guys like NTT Docomo. They own the merchant and the acquisition terminals, right? They own the phone. They actually are the payment mechanism in between. You got the MNOs who are the carriers themselves. You see, you have so many different players, all of whom, by the way, want to own this and make money at it, and they're all kind of disagreeing about who should own the biggest piece of that. So the ecosystem itself is not terribly cooperative,
right?
Which is why in a place like a Korea, where the government just says mobile payments will work and go, right? Or Docomo, such a market share and control over so many pieces of the ecosystem, whereas here, a lot of fracture.
Well, and I think it's also worth pointing out that just because NFC has a number of hurdles ahead, mobile payments is actually booming. You look at eBay, which reported about $5 billion in mobile commerce last year. So this is huge. I think in some ways it's gotten far bigger than most people realize, and even most people in the U.S. expected. So there is a lot of promise. You have a lot of players there, from Square to PayPal to different financial services.
So people are more
companies.
used to actually doing this, but it's the venue of how they're going to do it.
Exactly.
Change, right?
So and NFC is just one bet to make.
Well, and so and we've systematically ripped through all of this and why it's not going to work. But let's talk about maybe some of the reasons it will work. And on your panel, I believe you have ISIS. We just sat down with Nan Edwards of ISIS. They were able to bring together some of the major giants, and the AT&Ts, the Verizons, the T-Mobiles and stuff to start that kind of process. Other things that are happening that are positive.
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of great pilots going on. Even some of our own clients like Coca-Cola and Kraft, they're trying to use NFC as a new way to change how people shop, and so there's a lot of promise in those kinds of transactions. I think at London's Olympic Village, we'll see a lot of really interesting experiments going on there, because in that controlled environment, like Jamie's saying, when it's not as fragmented, you can actually make something like that work really well. So and ISIS, beyond bringing all the carriers together, they've got Capital One and a lot of the other financial services companies on board. So and Google's done a pretty good job at aligning with various partners too. So that's a really good thing. It also means that as we also wait for Apple, it's just going to get messier before everything gets neatened up. Because if I want to use NFC and it's ISIS and it's an ISIS terminal, I've got a Google Wallet phone, that's just going to delay things further.
Right. So, Jamie, you referenced the government playing a role overseas, being able to essentially say, this is how it's going to be, this is our set of standards. Is there a regulatory climate in the United States at this point around this issue? I mean, is it even on the radar from policy perspective?
I mean, which regulator, right? So again, when you break out all the pieces here, you've got a financial services dimension, you've got the mobile carrier dimension, you've got the device manufacturer dimensions, all of whom want to own and drive this. So which regulatory body would do it? In this country, the way we carve things up, right? We're not quite as cohesive in the way we dictate things. I mean, we have 15,000 banks in this country alone, so start there. Mobile carrier combinations do we have? Right? 10,000 odd OS device combinations. It's just full of heart.
So, all right. So I'm gonna ask then, what's the timetable? When can I get rid of my leather wallet?
Well, I think
What's your best guess?
Well, one of the big bets is when the iPhone builds it in, and there's just yet another rumor this week. Granted, there were lots of rumors this time last year before the latest phone came out, but they're really good at creating one device that reaches millions and millions of people, and everyone else follows. So I think it's amazing how well Google has done to just get people excited about it, but it's so fragmented that it could take years and years. So I think 3 to 5 years before you start having that, not just the early adopters, but the fast followers on board.
Right. Kyle Flaherty back from Breaking Point Systems. Greg Matthews, WCG. We're live from Stubbs in the Gemalto Lounge, live from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, with David Berkowitz, 360i, Jaime Punishell, Thomson Reuters. So this is the time we talked about e-wallets, digital wallets, leather pants. We talked about a lot of things in the last episode. Go back and watch it. But now I want to talk about, we're in Austin, barbecue and music. So you visit Austin, for South by Southwest and other times, I'm sure. Talk about some of the barbecue that you've kind of experienced, some of the things that you like to eat when you're down here.
Well, I always make sure to have an annual dinner at Lambert's, because that's just been it was the first place I just really fell in love with.
Yep.
And their Frito pie isn't even, I know it's not traditional Frito pie, but it's pretty heavenly. So I get back there for it. I just found out that I will actually be ditching some of the events to get to the Salt Lick this weekend. So.
Classic.
Always really important. Amy's Ice Cream, Jamie and I have bonded over there.
We have.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a whole
It was
other
special.
Animal hats. And,
remember, this is a family show.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jamie?
Yeah.
He took my two. Really, I've Salt Lick, which I'm not going to this year. I'm actually quite disappointed. I guess doing a couple times each of the last few years, but I'm not going to make the trek. It's a long way out there. I've got Lambert in my plans, and of course I'm excited for Franklin tonight, which I haven't yet experienced, but I hear awesome things about.
So you're from New York, David, which is known for its barbecue. Not exactly known for its barbecue, but
it's kosher barbecue.
You do a lot of traveling, obviously.
Yeah.
You've been to a lot of different parts of the country. I'm guessing that you've probably had a little North Carolina, maybe some Kansas City, some Chicago. Do you have any sort of favorites?
I love coming out here. My wife's from Texas. I spend a fair amount of time out here, so this is, I'm not just saying that because I'm in Austin, but this is my favorite out there.
All right, nice.
He is just saying it because he's live.
Right.
A few minutes ago, he was saying St. Louis kills this place.
Well, we know that's not true. And I married someone
I was
from
just
St.
going to
Louis,
say,
so,
I think your wife's going to be
hopefully she's not
disappointed.
watching the Ustream right now.
Well, we already identified
And you
she's the
had
only one.
amazing barbecue in the 413 in Central Mass, I'm sure, growing up, right?
I didn't even know what barbecue was.
Yeah, me neither.
In the 413.
Well, we thought grilling a patty on, the barbecue was not
no, New York's not exactly known for its awesome barbecue.
Now we've got a few places though.
We got a few. It's I don't feel like it should be so hard to export, but almost everything else is better.
It does seem, though, regionally to be does seem to be better barbecue all throughout the country at this point. I'm hearing better ones in New York, in Boston, in Chicago, places like that. So that's a good thing.
As people get more and more into it, it kind of makes sense.
There are places that'll ship too, right? A good buddy of mine, right? Every year is a big Corky's, barbecue party, right? Comes in, fresh the night before from Memphis.
Yeah.
Well, and you can go and get Stubbs sauces and all that
That's
stuff.
right.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
good,
exactly. You get a Whole Foods.
Yeah.
So another big part of South by Southwest, obviously, is the music festival. Have either of you guys ever stayed on for the music piece or gotten to experience any of that?
I have. I mean, the great thing still about Interactive is that there are bands playing constantly.
True,
So you can just stumble in places and hear some great music, but it's still my dream to actually take a few vacation days and hang out for the music part.
Yeah.
I gotta imagine everybody says exactly that.
Yes,
Right?
we've heard that.
if you hit, you arrive on Wednesday night or Thursday, right? By the time music really gets going, I'm convinced if I stay another couple of days, somebody's gonna find me face down, dead in the gutter, right? There's only so much South by one can absorb.
Well, there's only so much.
What's
Austin
the
can
dream?
absorb.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. So every year I say this is the year that I'm gonna experience it, and every year.
So from a music perspective, any particular venues that you love, could be New York, could be elsewhere, or any particular bands that you're super into right now?
I just saw Black Joe Lewis, who I had seen a couple years ago for the first time here at the Twitter party, and saw him. I'm trying to remember where I saw him in New York. I can't remember which place, but it was kind of cool to have seen them here, watch them come up, and now they're touring with Flog and Molly. It was a great concert.
Cool. What about you, David?
It's fun as far as great music venues. It's so much about what shows I've seen. And I care more about that than where I happen to be seeing them. And granted, a lot of the best music venues I've stumbled in here have been 1 a.m. and I don't know where I am or what it is. Just followed a crowd in and damn, this sounded good.
Has a rough idea the next day. Heard music.
That's the best way to discover.
Some of the stuff from live from PBS. I heard a Real Animal Excavate. I'm gonna really just insult people who know about music, and so it was great stuff, and just wandered in somewhere on 6th
So
Street.
speaking of that, finding new stuff, things like that, do either of you use Pandora, Spotify, those types of things to find new music, or do you do it in another way?
I try, but a lot of that stuff's blocked at work, right? So
Okay.
I can't access. It's the problem with working in a regulated industry.
Right.
So much of that stuff shut down.
Spotify, I've been listening to it so much that the ads really pissed me off enough to just spring for the paid version, and
I did the
it
same
worked.
thing.
And now I use it on mobile and everything, and I'm hooked.
It's brilliant, really.
Yeah.
You imagine they've done that on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about it? All right. I think that's a wrap.
You want to
gentlemen.
wrap us up?
Yeah, let's
do
wrap
it.
it up.
Let's
wrap
do it.
it
Go
up.
for it.
So, I'm Greg Matthews from WCG. I've been here with my host, Kyle Flaherty from Breaking Point Systems, and our good friends, David Berkowitz from 360i, Jaime Punishell from Thomson Reuters.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy the rest of South by Southwest. We've been glad to have you at the Gemalto Lounge.
Let's go eat some barbecue and listen to some music.
Let's do it.
Love that
All right.
idea.
Excellent.
Thanks, gentlemen.